Welcome to the deep dive. Just take a second and look around you. Your phone, maybe a smart speaker, the computer you might be listening on.
Even the AI stuff that's everywhere now, it all runs on this invisible engine, right? The semiconductor. We're talking trillions of components, a massive industry.
Exactly. And isn't it strange that the core material, the heart of all this tech, is called a semiconductor? I mean, sounds halfway, middling.
It does sound a bit weak, doesn't it? Why half? And that's really what we want to dig into today.
Right. This is our mission, to unpack that name, semiconductor. We'll look at sort of three layers. First, the old historical label, just what it literally meant back then.
And the physics, the quantum reason behind it.
And finally, maybe the most important part, the technical meaning, the one that actually drives all the technology we use every day.
Okay, so history first. The name itself goes way back. It wasn't even semiconductor initially, but semiconducting. Alessandro Volta used it in 1782.
Volta, like the battery guy.
The very same. But the term semiconductor got formally locked in around 1911 by Johann Königsberger. And the reason was, well, pretty straightforward.
It just conducted electricity.
Basically, yeah. If you measured its conductivity, it fell neatly between the really good conductors, like copper, and the really bad ones, the insulators, like glass.
So if you put numbers on it.
Well, if you look at resistivity, that's the opposite of conductivity. It's measured in ohmmeters. The semiconductor range, roughly $10 up to 10 meters. It's just sitting right there in the middle zone, literally halfway.
Okay, but that simple historical label, that's where the story starts getting a bit weird, right? Because the early observations of these things were, well, baffling for the science of the time.
Oh, completely baffling. You have to go to Michael Faraday in 1833. He was studying silver sulfide.
And he found something unexpected.
Totally unexpected. Something that seemed backward. He saw that when he heated up the silver sulfide, it actually conducted electricity better. It got more conductive.
Wait, hang on. Metals do the opposite, don't they? Heat them up. They resist current more.
Exactly. Heat up copper wire, the electrons bump into vibrating atoms more, resistance goes up, conductivity goes down, classical physics. But Faraday saw the exact opposite with silver sulfide.
Wow. Okay, so that must have thrown a wrench in the works.
It really did. This negative temperature coefficient of resistance, as it's called, was the first big, undeniable sign of this semiconducting effect. It kind of cemented the name, even though nobody really understood the why yet.
And people started using this weird property pretty quickly, even without the theory.
Yeah, practical stuff followed. Carl Braun in 1874 discovered rectification using these materials, basically making current flow only one way.
That sounds like the beginning of the diode.
It absolutely is, the grandfather of the diode. And then you had folks like Jagadish Bose developing crystal detectors for early radio. So the name semiconductor stuck because the materials were useful, intermediate, but also, fundamentally strange.
To really get the why, though, we need to leave that macro view and dive into the quantum world, right? Energy bands.
Precisely. We need energy band theory. It tells us where electrons are allowed to be in a solid material, energy-wise, and that explains everything about conductivity.
Okay, so what are the key parts of this theory?
There are three main things to keep in mind. First, the valence band. Think of it like the electron's home base. They're tightly bound to their atoms, the band is full, and they can't really move around to conduct electricity. So zero contribution there.
Got it. Home base, electrons stuck. What's next?
Next up, energetically, is the conduction band. This is like the energy highway. If an electron can get enough energy to jump up here, it's free from its atom, it can move through the material, and that's conduction.
Okay, so valence band is stuck, conduction band is free moving. What's between them?
Ah, that's the crucial part. The band gap. Symbol AJ. It's a forbidden zone of energy. Electrons aren't allowed to exist stably within the gap. The size of this gap is basically the single most important thing determining if something's a conductor, insulator, or semiconductor.
So it's all about the size of this forbidden zone, like a just right scenario.
Exactly like that. For metals, the band gap is essentially zero. The valence and conduction bands actually overlap. Electrons are already in the conduction band, ready to go. Conductivity is high.
Makes sense. And insulators.
Insulators have a huge band gap. We're talking more than, say, 4 electron volts, 4 eV. Now, at room temperature, the typical thermal energy available is tiny, only about 0.026 eV. There's just no way for electrons to make that massive jump.
So they stay stuck in the valence band, no conduction.
Right. And that brings us to the semiconductor, the just right material.
Its gap is moderate.
Moderate is the perfect word, typically between maybe 0.5 and 3 eV. Silicon, which is, the king of semiconductors, has a gap of about 1.12 eV.
Okay, so that 1.12 TeV gap, it's small enough.
It's small enough that even that tiny bit of room temperature thermal energy, the 0.026 eV, can occasionally give an electron enough of a kick to jump across the gap into the conduction band. Not many, but some.
And when that electron jumps, it leaves something behind, doesn't it?
It does. It leaves a vacancy in the valence band where it used to be. We call this vacancy a hole. And the amazing thing is, this hole can move around too as other electrons jump into it.
So the hole acts like a positive charge moving.
Effectively, yes. It behaves just like a positive charge carrier moving in the opposite direction of the electrons. So in a pure or intrinsic semiconductor, you get these electron-hole pairs generated by heat. That's what gives it its limited semiconductivity. That's the quantum half.
This really neat physical picture. An electron jumps, leaves a hole, both can move. But you said earlier this pure state is basically useless for technology.
Absolutely useless. I mean, it's beautiful physics, but terrible engineering for two big reasons. First, the conductivity is just incredibly weak.
How weak are we talking? Like, how many of these pairs actually form?
Get this. In pure silicon at room temperature, for every roughly 5 trillion silicon atoms, you only get one electron jumping the gap to create one electron-hole pair.
5 trillion to 1. That's almost nothing.
It's virtually nothing in terms of carrying a useful current. Way too low. And the second flaw is that instability Faraday noticed way back when.
The temperature dependence again.
Exactly. Because the only thing creating these carriers is random thermal energy, the number of carriers is exponentially tied to temperature. Remember that formula, conductivity depends on a power of minus Egal over kilobacacol. That T for temperature is in the exponent.
Which means a small change in temperature causes a huge change in conductivity.
Massive. Like your phone warms up a few degrees in your pocket and suddenly the conductivity inside the chip could change dramatically. You can't build reliable circuits like that. Imagine a logic gate flipping just because the room got a bit warmer. It's chaos.
Okay, so the natural semi-state is weak and unstable. The breakthrough wasn't just finding it, but figuring out how to fix it, control it.
Control it. That's the key. We needed to move from accepting this natural half state to engineering the conductivity we wanted. And that engineering marvel is called doping.
Doping. So this isn't about performance-enhancing drugs for silicon.
No, not quite. Doping is intentionally adding tiny, controlled amounts of specific impurities into the pure semiconductor crystal. We're talking maybe one impurity atom for every million or even billion silicon atoms.
Such a small amount makes a difference.
A fundamental difference. The goal is to create charge carriers not from unreliable heat, but from these stable, deliberately introduced impurity atoms.
Okay, how does that work? Let's start with making, say, N-type material.
Right. So silicon is in group 4 of the periodic table. It has 4 valent electrons that form bonds. For N-type, we dope it with an element from group V like phosphorus or arsenic. These atoms have 5 valence electrons.
So there's one extra electron that doesn't fit into the silicon bonds.
Exactly. 4 electrons form bonds with the neighboring silicon atoms, but that 5th one is left over. And crucially, it's only very weakly attached to its parent impurity atom. It needs hardly any energy, maybe 0.045 eV, much less than the band gap to break free.
So even at low temperatures, these extra electrons easily pop off into the conduction band.
Precisely. We've basically flooded the conduction band with easily available electrons that didn't come from breaking silicon bonds across the main gap. Electrons become the dominant or majority charge carriers. N is for the negative charge of the electron.
Okay, that makes sense. And p-type is the opposite logic.
You got it. For p-type, we dope silicon with a group 3 element, like boron or aluminum. These atoms only have 3 valence electrons.
So when they try to bond with 4 silicon neighbors, there's a spot missing an electron.
Correct. There's an empty spot, a vacancy, right there in the bonding structure. This is our intentionally created hole. Now, an electron from a neighboring silicon atom can easily hop into this hole with very little energy needed.
Leaving a hole behind where it came from.
Exactly. So the hole effectively moves. By adding these acceptor impurities, we create a large, stable population of mobile holes in the valence band. Holes become the majority carriers. P is for the positive effective charge of the hole.
Wow. So doping lets us choose whether electrons or holes carry the current, and we can control how many there are, independent of temperature.
That's the magic. We can tune the concentration of these impurity-generated carriers over an incredible range, maybe 12 orders of magnitude. We can make the silicon almost insulating again with very light doping, or make it almost like a metal with very heavy doping.
And we can do this in specific microscopic regions on a chip.
Yes, this precise spatial control of conductivity type, N or P, and level, how heavily doped, is the absolute foundation of modern electronics. It's what turns silicon from a weird natural material into a programmable substance.
This is why you said the name semiconductor is almost misleading today.
It really is. The technology isn't built on its inherent semiconductivity. It's built on our ability to engineer it to be either highly conductive or highly insulating on demand.
And that control is what lets us build, well, everything.
Yeah.
Starting with the PN junction.
The PN junction is ground zero. You take a piece of silicon, dope, one side P-type and the other side N-type, and that boundary between them. That's the junction.
And that junction has special properties.
It acts as a one-way valve for current. Current flows easily one way, from P to N typically, but is blocked the other way. That's the diode. Simple, fundamental.
And the transistor, the workhorse of digital logic.
The transistor, often the MOSFET metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor, is basically a sophisticated sandwich of P and N regions. Think of it as a switch.
Tiny electronic switch.
A near-perfect tiny switch. You have a source and a drain terminal with a channel between them made of semiconductor material. Then there's a third terminal, the gate, sitting just above the channel, insulated by a thin oxide layer.
And applying a voltage to that gate controls the channel.
Exactly. Apply a small voltage to the gate, and it attracts charge carriers, electrons in an N-channel MOSFET, holes in a P-channel, into the channel, making it highly conductive. The switch is on. Current flows easily from source to drain. Low resistance, almost like a conductor.
And remove the gate voltage.
To remove the gate voltage, the carriers leave the channel. It becomes highly resistive, almost like an insulator. The switch is O-off-F. Current stops.
So the on-end state is like binary 1. The O-off-F state is binary 0.
Precisely. And the beauty is we can flip this switch billions of times per second using very little power. That rapid, reliable switching between a near-conductor state and a near-insulator state, all controlled by doping and gate voltages, is how we do computation.
Billions of these switches, doped just right, packed onto a tiny chip. That's a modern CPU or GPU?
That's exactly what it is. Mind-boggling complexity, all built on controlling the conductivity of this semi-material. It's not about the middle ground. It's about mastering the extremes.
Okay, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Let's try to recap those 3 layers of meaning for you, our listener.
Right, so semiconductor. Layer 1, the historical label, is just descriptive. Its conductivity was literally in the middle, and it had that weird temperature behavior Faraday saw.
Layer 2, the physical definition. It's all about the quantum mechanics, specifically the moderate size of the band gap. Not too big, not too small, just right to allow some conduction via thermally generated electron-hole pairs.
But layer 3, the technical reality, is the most important one today. A semiconductor is fundamentally a material whose conductivity we can engineer. We can precisely control it, tune it, switch it on and off using doping.
Turning it from a natural curiosity into the programmable engine of the entire digital age.
Yeah, the name semiconductor is accurate history, but it's really misleading about the technology itself. We don't rely on its half state. We rely on our power to push it instantly between full conduction and empty insulation.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. The name fits the raw material perfectly, but utterly fails to capture the revolution we built by controlling it. But other simple, maybe historical, scientific names out there also kind of hide the incredible technological power they eventually unlocked. Something to ponder next time you pick up your smartphone.